Well, hello to the First Baptist Tulsa family and everyone who's connected with First Baptist Tulsa. This is our midweek update for August 10th, 2022, and we're getting this close to fall. I love fall, favorite season. Have to kind of endure this last big heat wave, I'm sure, and then we'll get into some cooler weather. But welcome to this midweek update, our 3-2-1. Here's the three things I want you to know. Two of these are going to be easy, one's going to be a little more difficult. So we are doing Camp Big Enough. That's going to be August 21st at noon. It's for kids that are entering pre-K and kindergarten who are going to be with their parents in big church now. And we believe that children learn best how to worship from their parents. Parents, it's not easy, I know, but we invest in our kids by allowing them to see us worship the Lord, and we model worship for them. So this is a camp that's going to be just after church on Sunday on the 21st, and it's for students and parents to learn about what happens in big church. They get to see the organ up close and see the baptistry and all those things, and it's a way of preparing them for what they're about to experience in big church. Okay, so that's Camp Big Enough. Second thing, Midweek at First, we're getting ready to launch that August 31st, last Wednesday of this month. You can check out the website, tulsafbc.org/midweek, see all the offerings that will be there. I'll be doing a class on praying through the Psalms and using that as a way of practicing prayer in the presence of God. So here's the third thing I want you to know. I think all of you know by now that Matt McClure, our student pastor, is taking on another church in Waco, Texas, and so he's going to be leaving our staff. His last Sunday will be August 14th. And we're going to send him off in style. Matt has served our church faithfully and served the students of our church faithfully for the last 16 years. So on August 14th, we'll have a special time with him in the student ministry, that time at 9:45. He'll be sharing his faith story in both morning worship gatherings. But then at noon that day, we're doing a lunch, free lunch. Matt loves Mexican food, so we're going to put out the spread and just appreciate Matt for 16 years of service. You know, in a day when most pastors serve at a church for about 18 months, that's the average tenure, Matt has far exceeded those odds and has served faithfully and well, and it really is exciting to hear about the ministry that he's going to. So we're going to miss Matt tremendously, and I would invite you, notes and cards mean a whole lot, and if you want to do a going-away gift for Matt, our staff is doing something for Matt, please feel free to hand those to him. He'll be here on the 14th, and we'll have a great time to celebrate he and Melissa and their kids, Maven and Lily, as we say goodbye to them. This is going to be a tough one. They'll still be around. They have family here in the Tulsa area, but we sure do love Matt McClure. Okay, so now here's the two chapters in the Bible I would invite you to read, Deuteronomy 11 and 12. We're still in the book of Deuteronomy, talking about how one God relates to one people through one law. And there's another piece to this. Chapter 11 is just a really good and very rich chapter. I would encourage you to read it several times. It just talks about falling in love with God. And if there's a way you want to pray for yourself, hey God, I want to fall in love with you. Help me to fall in love more with you every day. There's some great lines in here. One of my favorite is in verse 22, where it says, if you carefully observe these commands I'm giving you today to follow, to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience, and to hold fast to Him, then the Lord will drive out the nations that are in front of you. I love the fact that it defines what it means to follow God, to love Him with our heart, to follow Him with our feet, to hold fast to Him with our hands. It's an all-encompassing kind of love. But I really want you to pay attention to chapter 12, because in chapter 12, another piece of the puzzle falls into place, that this one God, this one people, they'll have one law connecting them in relationship, but they're also to have one temple at which to worship. And ultimately that would be in Jerusalem. Under the reign of King David, he would build the temple, and this was a command that I want all my people to come together in one place. And there's a couple of snippets here and there about worship that apply to us as well. One thing that's said in chapter 12 is, don't worship the Lord your God as all these other nations worship their gods. Okay, notably in two ways. They could just worship their God in whatever fashion and wherever they wanted to. God said, no, I'm giving you a place, and I'm going to give you a means by which to worship me through sacrifice. Ultimately, that'd be fulfilled in Jesus. But also so many of the Canaanite people worshiping their gods, they used human sacrifices. God said, that's not at all what I want. Now, ultimately, God would pay the sacrifice for sin himself in the life of God incarnate, Jesus the Son. But the Israelites were not to practice human sacrifices, nor were they just to make up anything they wanted to. So for us, we have to learn that it's important to worship the right God, the one and only God, but also in the right way. And as followers of Jesus, we worship God not in our own name. We worship God in the name of Jesus Christ and Him alone. And so great chapters here, Deuteronomy chapter 11, chapter 12, read those. Continue to see the connections of one God, one people, one law, one temple. So here's one way to pray this next week as we continue our teaching series on anger. This is a verse that I need to memorize, so I'm just going to read it. Proverbs 25:28. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. So in the ancient world, cities were vulnerable to attack from raiders, and they had walls around the city, much as we have alarms on our houses, many of us. And if a city didn't have walls, it was vulnerable. It was vulnerable to attack by anyone who chose to do so. If a city does not have walls, it's vulnerable. If a person lacks self-control, then they're vulnerable to be angry at anybody and anything that happens to come along. So we need self-control to protect us from anger, to preserve us in an angry world. Self-control is one of the keys to using anger as an emotion and not having it use us when it becomes a sin. So memorize that verse, learn that verse. Self-control is important, not to be vulnerable to our emotions, particularly anger. It's a good way to pray for yourself this week. So I love being your pastor. I love serving here at First Baptist Tulsa. We are going to be talking in the next few days about what's going to happen to our student ministry, with our student ministry in the interim, what's the plan going forward. We're putting all that together, and we'll be presenting that to the students and to the church very soon. Love you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.